Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining the RC West Oversight Committee meeting. This is Christina Osborne with the California ISO Stakeholder Affairs Group. I'll be facilitating the meeting. We did post a presentation out on the RC West webpage. That is on the ISO website. You can find that by going to the Stay Informed tab and selecting RC West from the drop-down. So this is the agenda. Michelle Cathcart, the chair, is going to actually start us off by taking roll, and then we do have a couple of we do have an item for discussion with the members. That's the chair and vice chair election guideline. It has been revised, so we're going to ask members to decide on that. We also have a resolution of appreciation that we'd like to ask the members to decide on. Then we have our regular updates. We have Tim Beach here from RC West. He's going to provide an overview. Update on the November Go Live as we became the RC of record. We have Didi Sabaki, who's on the phone line. He's going to talk about the phaser measurement unit update and also the RC metric development that's happening. And then Nancy's here to provide, she's going to talk about the EHV data pool closure. She just wants to have a reminder on that for members. And then Hani Alarian is in the room. He's going to provide the technology update. He's going to talk about the HANA ICCP tags and also the network model schedule. And then we'll have a discussion at the end. We do have some meetings for 2020, some dates that we'd like to propose and just get your feedback on that. And then we'll talk about future agenda items for the next meeting. And then we will have some time at the end for public comments. So we are going to record the session today. The public session, we'll make that recording available on the RC West webpage, so look for that probably by the end of this week. The end of this week. Also in the room from ISO, we have Phil Pettengill, we have Eric Schmidt, Tricia Johnstone, Joanna Lai, and Jennifer Ross. So, Michelle, why don't you go ahead and start us off by taking roll.
All right, Arizona Electric Power Co-op, Avista, Avangrid, Arizona Public Service.
Christy's here.
Thanks, Christy.
Mm-hmm.
Bank. Bonneville is here with me. ISO, PA.
Larry Belknap's on the phone.
Thanks, Larry. Sanase, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Gridforce, Hetchy.
Hetchy is here.
Two. Idaho Power, IID.
Matt Smeltworth, IID.
Thanks, Matt. LADWP. Los Alamos. Modesto.
James McFalls here.
Thanks, James. Montana, Alberta, Thailand. Nature Enter.
Eric Smith is here from Nature Enter.
Eric. Northwestern.
Casey Johnson.
Thanks, Casey. NV Energy. Pacificor.
Eric Brookhouse is on.
Thanks, Eric. Pacific Gas and Electric. Portland General.
Corey McAllister's here.
Thanks, Corey. P&M. Puget. Salt River.
Steve's here.
Southern California Edison.
Yeah, good morning, Michelle. Tony Edison's on the line.
Thanks, Tony. San Diego Gas and Electric? Seattle City Light? Silicon Valley? Mud? Nahomish? Tacoma?
John Nierenberg is here for Tacoma.
Thanks, John. Trans Bay? Tri-State? Turlock? Valley Electric? And WAPA? All right. Did anybody else join since starting the roll call? All right. So it looks like we don't quite have quorum. We may not actually be able to approve things, although we can seek some email votes from folks after we start. So I think the first thing on the agenda then is the chair and vice chair terms. And you should have seen a document come out with some changes to what we had approved in the past. And the reason for that, you'll recall that at the last meeting, we did elect Christy Coco as the new vice chair. And as Christy and I were talking about the terms and some of the conversation that we had at that election about having some transition, we realized that first of all, that because we had said that there were staggered terms, it made it so that the vice chair couldn't become the chair because their term would be in the middle when the chair's term started. And so we thought that it's best to take out the staggering, and so that was the biggest change. And then just given the time frame and making sure that Christy has a little bit of time under her belt before she actually becomes chair, we thought that making the change in June would be a good time to give her a little bit of time, and then hopefully we can stay on a June schedule from here on out. So those were essentially the changes that that we were proposing. Are there any questions on that?
So, Michelle, this is Steve Cobb. I guess one of the things that we should probably keep in mind based on what the proposed meeting schedule is for next year, I think the meeting was scheduled for May, and I think we had discussed that based on we wanted to get a meeting under our belts prior to the summer season. So I guess would we say the election is held in May, or would we say the election is held in June? If we say it's in May, then they could take office in June or whatever.
Yeah, I think the intent had been for the election to happen in May and the term to start in June. Are there any other questions?
Michelle, this is Gabriel with Senase. I think I had trouble during the roll call.
Oh, thanks, Gabriel. Is there anybody else that I got an email from somebody else that had trouble being heard in the roll call? Are there other people that have joined? Okay. Well, we're still not quite at quorum then. If there aren't any other questions, Christina, I'm thinking maybe we can just send this out for an email approval overall.
Yeah, no problem. And it looks like I need to remove staggered.
Yeah.
I just need to make sure the document doesn't say staggered.
Charter, I mean, did we specifically say no email approvals in our charter, or did we just leave it silent?
We're going to, yeah.
I just want to make sure we're consistent with whatever we said in the charter.
Yeah. So, Michelle, this is Phil. I think what Nancy's raising is the approval process, and the email approvals we had talked about being done prior to the meeting. So how do we work through that here, not having a quorum at the meeting and not having had any votes ahead of time?
We did have a handful of votes ahead of time, but as I was counting even those, we still don't quite have quorum.
Okay. What do we think?
Deferring it till the vote, till the next meeting. I guess you could. That would be February, though.
Unless we had the December meeting.
Unless you have December. So that we got to figure out the timing, Michelle, it's Nancy. But the other thing that I heard you say, and I don't know if maybe in the document itself it's different, but in the slides it says it would still be staggered terms. Is that correct, or were you and Christy thinking of taking out the staggered part of it?
We were thinking taking out the staggered part.
Yeah.
Do we need to have a December meeting?
I guess.
So
yeah.
Let's
hey, Michelle?
Yes.
Michelle, this is Leroy Patterson at Grant. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you, because I've been on since the start of this thing, but you haven't been able to hear me.
Okay.
Hey, Michelle, Keith, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, too, Keith. Thank you.
I think there might be some others in the same boat. That's your inability to reach quorum.
Yes. Good morning. This is Rebecca from WAPA.
Great. Quick count here. Did anybody else join? We're still just, looks like, looks like we're one short. Anybody else join?
Michelle, you might mention that they need to use the participant code that comes up in the email invitation to this, rather than the one that comes up when you join the webinar, because that's what happened to me.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, so for all of the members of the committee, please, if you did go through the WebEx, then hang up on that and dial into the version that is on the email invitation. That'll have the speaker line information. So let's give just another minute for folks to be able to do that, and then we'll see if anybody else joins the call.
Hey, Michelle, this is Nancy again. I have a suggestion of maybe we take this back up after the update portion of this call, and by then people either have re-logged into the right number or we have additional people logging in, and you might get your quorum at that point.
That's a good idea.
Here, keep going.
All right. So we can keep going. So the next item is that, so we did talk about the fact that Steve is retiring at the end of the year. And so we have a resolution here of appreciation for Steve. He's been a great vice chair of our committee and really helping lead this transition, and we want to appreciate everything that Steve has done. So I'm going to go ahead and read the proposed resolution. Whereas Steve Cobb was elected as Vice Chair of the RC West Oversight Committee in March 14, 2019, and whereas Mr. Cobb added tremendous value to the RC West Oversight Committee throughout his tenure, and whereas Mr. Cobb enhanced the RC West Oversight Committee's effectiveness, bringing his experience and knowledge to bear on the issues it faced and the stakeholders it represented, and whereas Mr. Cobb's dedication to reliability and fairness in all matters related to the RC West implementation and operation manifested in effective resolution of complex and difficult issues, and whereas Mr. Cobb shared his knowledge and assessments freely with his colleagues, and whereas Mr. Cobb has been a fervent leader, a respected expert, and a friend during his nearly 40-year career serving the Western Interconnection through Salt River Project, be it resolved that the RC West Oversight Committee members hereby express their utmost appreciation and sincerest gratitude to Mr. Cobb for his service and dedication to RC West and Western Interconnection. So I personally want to thank Steve for being a partner throughout this, and open up the floor for any other discussion of that. Well, so I think that we can go ahead and go through approval. Well, I think it's okay on this one not to be that close to a quorum. So is there anyone opposed to the resolution? All right.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with all of you. I really appreciate the words.
Thank you, Steve. All right. I guess with that, then, we'll move on to the RC operations update.
Good morning, everybody. Tim Beach here. Just got a few items to talk about for operations. As you all know, on November 1st, we transitioned to RC of record. The transition went very smooth. We have not had any really events happen since then, so that's good. We have had a couple USF events on past 66, actually just one that I know of, or recall right now anyhow, so that's going well. The communications with the BAs and TOPs has been strong. We do have our Northwest and Southwest conference call every morning, and we've had pretty good participation on that. Of course, during that call, we talk about path D rates, IRL limits for the day as they're defined in the OPA, major facility outages, and RAS outages if they take place. So it's an important call to have. It sort of keeps everybody on the same page. We've been doing it on the Southwest for a number of years. We recently started in the Northwest. It's new to the folks in the Northwest. And there's, a lot of times there isn't a lot of discussion on those calls, so there's some question of value. But we are going to continue that call through the end of the year, and we'll reevaluate the process around that call. We'll always have some sort of call in regards to that, because we do need to communicate those IRLs and path D rates. We feel that's important, as well as any facility outages that might have been identified during the nightly outage review that takes place just prior to that 0300 call. So that's going well. Appreciate your support on those, and relaying to your team that those calls are very important to the reliable operation and interconnection and keeping people on the same page. Recent discussion item has come up on the RTWG regarding OMS approvals. Of course, a lot of this centers around the ambient D rates that come in real time. The RCs are supervising those approvals via OMS, and they have to do that to have knowledge of any changes to units that are, we feel, 50 megawatts and above. Now, we may adjust how we do that. There may be some hour acceptance, and we're vetting that internally, how those cards are being used in that regard, especially to EIM entities. But we're also vetting maybe some potential workarounds to streamline that process a little bit to get those approvals. So there is the potential, after we vet it internally, of a RTWG ad hoc task force regarding that. And we'll talk about that more at our TWG meeting on Thursday. So again, just something I wanted to make you aware of that we're working on. It's been identified, and we're having discussions with your BAs and TOPs on that subject. So. Also, NERC has approved our modifications to the time error monitor reference document and the GMD monitor reference document. So RC West has become the time error monitor for WAC as of yesterday at 10:30. So that notice went out. That has impacted if there's from a real-time perspective, if there's a manual time error correction that needs to be called, RC West will do it. We haven't had a manual time error for reliability reason in the West in quite some time, and frankly, we don't see that happening, but we have the process in place if it were to occur. The last one is the GMD monitor. So we will become the GMD monitor on December 3rd when peak transition, or when SVP transitions to become RC record for the remaining peak area. We will continue that monitor rule through 2020. At that time, we'll establish a rotation, and BCRC will become the GMD monitor for 2021. So that's in the reference document. It establishes a rotation with RC West, Alberta, BCRC, as well as SPP. So that's been approved and going forward. So it syncs up well with the East, and we'll have the same type of notification when those transition occurs, and it'll be in the same timeline that the Eastern Interconnection transitions to their GMD monitor. One of the things we may sync up with that is the RC to RC call that occurs every morning. At 0600, the RCs discuss operational aspects from the wide area view perspective. So that happens at 0600, or shift change every morning. Currently, RC West is initiating that call. We're going to continue that through 2020, but we'll probably sync that up through 2021 to match the GMD monitor rotation. So BCRC would become the initiator of that call in 2021. That's not solid yet, but that's the direction that the team is going on that. So the RC team is going on that. The other thing we're working on with is coming up is the SPP peak transition plan and peak shutdown. So have some discussions about with SPP, getting them ready to make sure they're thinking or just coordinating correctly with their BAs and TOPs regarding the loss of RMT, HAA, make sure they're notifying their people of that, like we've done so here at ours. We want to make sure that nobody is surprised when that transition occurs. So there's also perhaps some ECC testing that has to take place. For example, when we became past 66 approval for USF events on July 1st. We ran a test at the transition time to make sure that we could approve on a USF request, and there's a test process that they could do at that time. We're asking FPP to do the same thing on their side. They said they've done it in their test environment, but personally I'd like to make sure that they can do it in their production environment at the time of transition so they can approve one of their 3 paths that they are a USF approver for. Those are the total paths. So we're working on that as well with them. Also, you may have heard that PEAK is already starting on some of their items, some of their NetApps. BSA has gone away, and the DSA, they're not monitoring the South San Diego IRL anymore because they're not RC of record for that area. So, but we have that covered on our side. But I just noticed that their search really sort of starting to wind down now. They're getting pretty close. So I don't have a solid plan on what they're going to do for their shutdown other than turn it over and shut their programs off and lock the door. But we're sort of working with them on that and, managing the sensitivity around it as well. So that's going on. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about this more later, but our TWG is meeting weekly right now. We meet on Thursdays. We'll continue to do that through the end of the year, excluding the holidays. But then when we get into 2020, we're going to try to move to a monthly call rather than a weekly call. So we may make a step approach to that, and we may go bi-weekly, and then monthly. We'll see how the team feels about that. So, but that's our general plan for next year. So be happy to take any questions you may have on any of that. Okay, thank you.
All right, Didi, you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to take a moment here to just provide a brief update on where we are with regards to the PMU, the Space Measurement Unit, and with regards to the actual transition for the network itself. So as many of you know that the current PMU data are transferred to a GE network that is no longer supported and is being moved to the AT&T new WISP network. So this is where we are right now. Just show you in the slide. On the left there are entities that are all good to go, connected to the new WISP network. The one in the middle are entities that have completed circuits and ready to cut over. And the one that are on the right are the entities that are not yet ready for one reason or another. I also wanted to point out that WAPA is actually connected to SPP via Internet CPN for PMU data. So this is actually for some of the for all the critical data only. So we are using an Internet VPN from WAPA to SPP, and then from SPP pass that data to RC West via the AT&T WISP network. So that's where we are right now. Any questions, comments? All right, I'll go to the next slide then, I guess.
Didi, it's Christy. I'm sorry, I did have a question.
Yes, Christy.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So is there timelines, or because if I understood correctly, there's a compliance issue to have this PMU data so that they have the inter-oscillation information by the end of the year. Is there, do all of those people have to be connected to the new WISP by the end of the year?
No, you are correct. So the reliability standard requirement takes effect on January 1st, 2020. And in order to do the inter-area oscillation detections, there are a handful of critical PMU data. So not all PMU data are required, but it is a handful of them. So what we have done is we have focused on those handful to make sure that those handful data are all ready and good to go. So at this point in time, that's actually part of the reasons why you see that WAPA is connected to SPP via Internet VPN for the PMU data, and SPP passed that data now already through AT&T WISP. And that's because of that, because we have some critical data that we need from WAPA. I think the only other one that is needed is probably one or two from Tri-State, and that would be it. Everything else is covered in all the other network that we already have. The deadline is coming up, approaching, because the requirement we have is for January 1st.
And Tri-State is on schedule to get whatever you need for the critical data by January 1st?
That's correct. The folks the folks in the middle is good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Christy, it's Keith at Tri-State. So, yeah, we had some delays in getting the circuits in place to carry the data, and that was dependent on those communication carriers. But I think we've overcome that now, and we are on track to have that done.
Great, thanks.
All right, RC West metrics, Didi?
So I think there's a slide there to reminder. Do you want me to just do the reminder for Nancy, or?
I'll do that.
I could do that as well. Oh, you want to do that after? Okay, fine. That's good. All right. So in the last August, I would like to say, I think it was in the August public executive oversight committee meeting, we talked about the development of the RQF metrics. So we've talked about the how peak reliability has had its metrics. So we would like to start it from what we have with peak. So one thing that we noticed that there are some attributes of the RQF metrics that, there's some attributes that peaks metrics that we would like to duplicate. One of them is being a classification, for example. So peak reports some of this enhancement, the enhanced reliability services, reports it to its board, and the report is made available to public. So we believe that we should also have a similar report where we would make the report available to the RC Oversight Committee, and the RC Oversight Committee is a public meeting. So there would be a subset of this enhanced reliability service metrics that would be made available for public. There is also metrics for that are considered confidential within peak, and these are actually metrics for data input quality based on the IRO 10 data requirement. This is data that is required to support RC services. So, for example, the accuracy of load forecast that each VA provides, the accuracy of generation forecast maybe, or interchange forecast that VA has. So these are items that are in the past have been provided more in a confidential manner, and it's provided for the VA or provided for the TOP with regards to this type of a data. So we thought that it's also a good proposal to continue to have that type of determination of more of confidential data that is in there. The third portion is metrics for internal, our internal organizations that measure cross-department performance, operators, operations, logging, and these are tough stuff that peak currently does not produce externally, but what they do is they do a summary, or they do a combination, and they do have that discussion with the customers on this particular situation. So we are actually interested in getting input from the BA TOP on similar stuff. So in summary, what we've done is, if we go to the next slide, Christina, we've actually started a process with the real-time working group as well as the operations planning working group, and we put together a summary of what we believe could be a proposed metrics. And now this is the first cut of this. Things that, like the real-time tools, state estimator quality, state estimator convergence, real-time contingency analysis, RTC accuracy, critical system availability. We would make this public, and there's other stuff like load forecast accuracy. This is the BA's load forecast accuracy. This is something that is traditionally has been put as a confidential. OPA, RT West OPA accuracy. So you could see this, and then the SOL accidents management, the outage coordination process, and some of the operations communication. So this is the first cut of this. We actually have published or have a meeting and publish recording and PowerPoint with more of the details on this through the working group. But the working group is still processing this as well. So if we go to the next slide, there's a proposed timeline of how we envision this would work out. We did have a working group kickoff back on November 12th. We are providing the update to the Oversight Committee today. And currently we have a commenting period. We are working with both the real-time working group as well as the operations planning working group. And the deadline for comments is next week, recognizing that next week is a holiday week. So we'll probably have some lenience in there into the beginning of December. But the reasons why we have that short timeline is because we want to give a turnaround and we want to have another working group call on December 5th. And then 2 weeks later, we have a working group to finalize the metrics with the thought and the goal to have the start of the metrics gathering on January 1st, 2020. So that's wrap up the summary of my presentations on the metric itself. So I would suggest, I would propose that that each one of you in your organizations work with your real-time working group as well as the operational planning working group to provide comments. And where we have the comments form available in there already, and the due date is next week. I think the end of the November 29th. So with that, I would open it up for questions and comments.
Dee Dee, it's Christy again. Is there any discussion about like a customer service type of metric, like how quickly we respond to tickets or that type of thing? Or is there just the thought that when something is real time, we would just call an operator and that would be the way we would address any problems?
So yeah, there are a couple of things in there, Christy. If we go back to one slide above this, many of the call, for example, that comes in is through outage coordination process. So in this outage coordination process, there is a matrix that is proposed about, for example, how timely an outage approval is, or how timely we are in answering phone with regards to outage changes. So that's one of them. The other one is around the SOL exceedance, where we have that in there. Now, I think your question is about, is there metrics about resolution to the, that's what your, the actual customer inquiry data and the city tickets in there. We didn't talk about that as part of the operational metrics, but as an organization, California ISO and RTOS, internally we do have a metrics on how quickly that we actually respond to the city ticket and closing the city tickets for the resolution. So we do have that, but it's not quite in the operational metrics as we've been talking about. But I think that's a good discussion item if we want to pull some of this CD ticket or customer relationship type of a ticket under operational metrics or a separate metrics in there.
Thanks, Dee Dee. We'll put a comment in on the stuff that's out there and for discussion, so you guys as a team can talk about it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is John Nuremberg, Tacoma Power. I guess I just have a little bit of concern about whether SC quality should be public at this point, given kind of our confidence in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, we actually have quite a bit of a discussions with regard to state estimator quality and convergence. One of the things that was discussed in the real-time working group was that we might be able to create a generalized SE quality metrics for the whole RCWS footprint as more general public item, and we would have we could actually create a TOP specific state estimator quality metrics. This was actually a suggestion by an individual from the Northwest area where he said that we can actually create a residual for each TOP in a way to create a TOP specific quality metrics. In other words, how good is RCWS model and state estimator for a specific TOP? And that is definitely confidential. So that was one of the comments that was brought up in the call last week.
Okay. Yeah, I could see. Yeah, even as you get kind of regional, I think becomes a little bit more interesting. But I guess if we look at just kind of an overall generic, maybe I'm not as concerned. Thank you.
Sure. Yep.
Do you want to give this update as well?
I could. So I think this is a reminder. We have been working with the Track 3 onboarding folks, and we have brought online the WDSP, which is the new Western Data Sharing Pool. That Western Data Sharing Pool has been available since the right around the end of October, and we've been working with individual BA and TOP to review every single data that they have, data that they need. So just to bring the close loop here, there is along with the peak winds down on December 3rd, the EHV will be turned off on December 3rd. So that is the timeline that is non-negotiable because we know that on December 3rd, peak would start turning off all the IT infrastructures that they have, including the EHV data pool. So we have requested from your engineers, from your IT, from your EMS folks, that they would tell us, by the end of this week, really, I think. I don't remember exactly, but they need to tell us what else that they need, and many of them are already working with us, so that's great. Many of them already putting tickets to give us a list what else they need from those data, so those are great. But if you have not, or if you have not been reviewing or not having any tickets coming in, I just want to encourage you to double check with your engineers, your network application people, your ICCP people, and remind them that the December 3rd deadline is something that is beyond our control, and it's something that is not negotiable in that end. So I think it's pretty important to get through what I call the denial phase, that some people think that we can actually extend this beyond December 3rd. And the answer to it is no, we cannot extend beyond December 3rd because peak is no longer available beyond December 3rd. So so I just encourage folks that if you just double check, triple check with your people to make sure that they know and they are working with us with that.
So Dee, this is Nancy. I want to add one more thing. So the data that we would have would be for our July customers as of the July data, I believe, and November 1st. But if you need anything for historical peak reasons for compliance or anything like that, you need to go get that from peak. Once the EHV is shut down, it sounds like there's really no going back. So we just wanted to remind you that if you needed to pull some historic data as well from the EHV data pool that Peak currently has stored, you need to do that before they shut it down on December 3rd.
So Dee Dee, this is Michelle, and I know that my team is working with RC West on clearing up some data points that are showing up as bad or suspect quality. And so I would also encourage folks to make sure that you're looking at the quality of the point so that you can work with CAISO to resolve any quality issues before that December 3rd cutoff as well.
That's correct. Thank you, Michelle. So what we are looking at, number one is, do you need any additional data? Number two is, do you have the right permissions to read the data? Once you know that you have the data, then you have the ability to read the data, then check the quality to make sure that the quality is all good and not bad or suspect. And if you find any of those that you need, make sure that you work with us on that soon. If not, December 3rd is really just not even a full 2 weeks from now, knowing that we have a Thanksgiving holiday next week. So.
All right. Thanks, Dee Dee. So I think next is the technology update with Hanny.
Good morning. A month ago, there was an issue on HANA ICCP tags, and on October 25th, that was resolved, and there was an email that came out for everybody. So as of now, please let us know if there is any issue that we need to address, but as far as I know, we're aware of, it's resolved. Network model schedule. We've been actually trying to focus on reducing our quarterly model down to a monthly model. But for a while, the new UMS and the RC had higher priority, but this process was going in parallel. Anybody?
Did somebody have a question?
Okay, so right now, DB93 is planned to go to production December 19. We're in testing at this moment in time, and so it looks cautiously optimistic December 19 is correct. And we'll try our, make sure that that goes live on that date. The other issue we had is trying to figure out how we're going to get to monthly. And we have improved our process, and we have improved our efficiency, and we try to find how to do it better. Obviously, there is a building of a model and a testing of the model, and we shaved some time on both, but the improvement and the efficiency we've done obviously is not good enough to get us to a month, so we're actually rearranging and improving the process and looking at getting down to a month. But for now, we're trying to focus on at least the next model, which is DB94. We're looking at the end of February. So from a planning purposes, trying to get that. So that's 2 months. And we are working in parallel to have a plan completely done to get it within 1 month. And that plan is going in parallel. We still may be a few weeks away from announcing when we'll start exactly the monthly, because it does require a lot more than just going to monthly. It requires a little bit improvement in our software, improvement in our process, and all of those additional improvement in our staff. So we're working on all levels. I think we're very close to get it to monthly. Obviously, once we have that plan, you always have to work on the next model to be monthly. So, so we're thinking right now to just announce the February, and the next one will be in April, and then after that we'll decide where we're going from there. The biggest issue that we're focusing on right now is quality of solution, state estimator, tuning, and RTCA, and that's where the focus on and stays the highest priority. Question?
Yeah, this is James McFall at Modesto. I'm glad you mentioned the RTCA. We have a few issues on our side with it looks like about 3 particular modeling issues that we're having that keep us from getting reasonable RTCA results. And what I'm hearing from staff is that we're having trouble getting those in place so that they may not be in place in time for when the peak tool goes away. And that's a big concern for us. I'm wondering how that's being addressed.
I don't have specific on that one. I have to actually get a little more specific. And look at it, see how it's going to address. Are you saying it won't be addressed in DB93? Is that what you're...
Peak tool goes away December 3rd, HAA, and it sounds like Modesto's got some point that there's, I hear it was on your side, struggling getting corrected prior to the peak tool, but then would have to get into our model, which sounds like that's not till December 19th. So I think the question is, do we have a way to support those kinds of instances through some sort of workaround between December 3rd and December 19th?
Right. It depends on the change, so I have to look at the change. Some changes we can do between models, so we can actually make the change before December 3rd, but changes are. And
okay.
And obviously it's not, then I'd have to work with Nancy about what we're going to do until the 19th.
MID.
Oh, MID. So have you put a city ticket in with that request at this point, or?
Well, my understanding is that we've been working directly with the ISO on these issues, and for quite a while now, and there's something about a delay due to making sure that the market results are accurate, and I'm not sure I quite understand that. I haven't been down in the weeds on this thing, but I wanted to raise the level of priority on. We've got a tool that we're paying for that needs to be available when the peak tool goes away, and so that we can perform our duties under our NERC requirements.
Okay. So I guess we'll have...
Nancy, this is Didi. I'm somewhat familiar. Actually, I'm quite familiar with with what James was talking about. What it is basically there is a request of the actual change because there are some error in the model topology itself. So the topology needs to be changed and needs to be updated, and we have to go back and look at the actual. I know that we queue it for one of the DB updates because it requires a DB update for that. Ani and I will have to look at whether or not it's in DB93 or not. And I think what you're saying is it should be in the DB93 because we need it before January 1.
If it's not
before December 3rd.
DB93. But yeah, I'll make sure it's in DB93. I think the gap is December 3rd to December 19th. And then I'll work with you, Didi. Is this only affecting RTCA in your area, or?
Good question. Can I have someone on my staff give one of you
Yeah, James. I actually have the email and the tickets from Alex Cerna and Toxiburs, so okay. we could go back with them.
Okay, that would be great, Didi.
I'd like to jump in here. This is Grant. This is Leroy Patterson Grant. We have a similar problem with our model, and it was supposed to be rolled in this month, and we were waiting to make sure that it was rolled in, and now that roll-in has been delayed till December 19th. So we have a similar problem. Plus, I don't know whether it ever got put in the model, so we may have a secondary issue there. But we've got a similar issue. We also have an issue that we've had a city ticket open since the 1st because we are not getting any HANA alarms transmitted to us via ICCP. We've got the tags set up and they're functional, but we're not getting any data transferred across it. And I know there's a city ticket open for that. I don't know on the model because we were waiting to see if the model that was supposed to be rolled in this week was going to have our modeling changes addressed. But this is an RTCA issue. It's also a HANA issue. So
I think we've got about 5 minutes left in our public session. So I think RC West, I think the message is that there are several specific issues that hopefully will be addressed in DB93, and I appreciate you looking into the resolution of any HANA service issues between December 3rd and December 19th when the new model is put in place. For other specific issues, hopefully all of you have city tickets in place as well, but I would ask that we have an update on on these issues at the next meeting as well to make sure that we're getting these types of issues resolved. So since we do have just a few minutes left, I think that the remainder of the agenda was just looking at the rest of the meeting schedule, and then we also needed to come back to see if we got quorum yet on the chair and vice chair terms. Has anybody else joined the call that wasn't part of the original roll call?
John Butler with WAP is on.
Mike with Avista.
Thanks, Mike. All right, so with that, we do have quorum. So is there anyone opposed to the changes that we made to the chair and vice chair terms?
Just one question, Michelle.
Oh,
this is Brian Pauling. Just one question. We stated that on the call we talked about the elections being held in May to be effective in June. I just want to make sure that that's how it reads in the official document.
Sure. Yeah, we'll make sure that the official document reads that way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then no issues.
Okay. All right, we will consider that approved then. So was there a comment? All right, so the one other thing is that we do have a schedule for the 2020 Oversight Committee dates. Hopefully those work for folks. Recall that in our discussion we did agree to go to quarterly with in-person meetings in May and November. So we'll get those held on everyone's calendars. And the last question I had for folks, we currently have a webinar scheduled on December 17th. And I'm wondering if folks want to continue to have that meeting or cancel it. But are there thoughts on topics that we need to discuss at that December meeting?
This is Brian Pauling. I think the biggest topic of discussion would be the first meeting subsequent to Peak's wind down. And so just understanding the transition and if there were any issues associated with the wind down that were unexpected and how they were handled.
Okay. All right, that seems like a good topic, so let's go ahead and continue to have that as a webinar meeting then, and we'll add that as an agenda topic. Are there any other agenda topics that we need to add to that meeting? All right, we have 1 minute left for any public comment.
Yeah, so if anybody has a question or comment, you can raise your hand by pressing #2, and please start by introducing yourself. So Lauren, please let me know if anybody enters the queue. No questions?
We do not have any questions in the queue.
Okay.
All right, so then I think we can adjourn the public session and move into the executive session. So thank you to everyone for participating today.